Evening. Welcome to the Kenmore-Tonawanda Union Free School District Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. District Clerk, please note that all trustees are present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we get into our agenda this evening, we are going to start something a little bit new in an effort to keeping us reminded of our purpose for being here and guide us in some of our decision making. Each meeting, we're going to start out by reading our Board of Education vision and mission statement and values that were established back in 2018. Our Board of Education district vision is to create a community of dynamic learners who possess social awareness, confidence, and a belief in their power to succeed. Our mission statement, Kenton School Community, will provide our students with the supports, tools, and diverse opportunities needed to meet the challenges of an ever-changing world. Wow, that's going to be tested this year. And our values, mutual respect, independence, trust, teamwork, integrity, passion for excellence, and responsibility. Thank you. Okay, item 4A, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Andrew. Second by Leslie. Any discussion? There being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor, so signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 4B, the approval of the minutes from the July 7th, 2020 reorganizational and regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. So moved by Tom.
Second.
Second by Jen. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, item 5A, public comments.
No public comment.
Okay, looks like we have no public comments this evening. We'll move on to item 6A, our board reports. We've had a couple things. We had kind of a busy week. Yesterday we had our Board of Education annual retreat. Was actually held here in this room. And the retreat actually began with the presentation from Michael Hornig Jr., who's the Executive Vice President from PLS Third Learning, which is the company that we deal with for our SuperEvail program that we use to evaluate our superintendent and do our self-evaluation of our board. Michael provided us with a nice hands-on training to start out the program yesterday. Then we had Dr. O'Malley, our former board president, come in as part of her role with the Erie County Association of School Boards. She helped to facilitate the retreat. Dr. O'Malley first guided us through some board roles and responsibilities, communication among the board, board member responsibilities. And then she went on to get into our Board of Education goals for the year, and Vice President Gianni is going to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, thank you. So when we talked about goals, there were really two that we talked about yesterday, I believe, and this is I guess the first draft of this, so it'll be open to comment from the rest of the board, obviously. But the first one was kind of that rollover from last year. So at a high level, the goal is optimize procedural stability of the board. And there's two bullet points. The first one is create handbook to outline roles and responsibilities for the Board of Education, which is something we've been talking about doing for some time. But I know we're going to do it this year. And actually, I think it was actually really good because we spent some time yesterday at the board meeting sort of talking about board norms, because that's really the idea behind the handbook is that their boards vary in terms of how they operate and what the norms are for how they behave. And so really codifying that, I think, would be helpful, especially as we continue to bring on new board members into the future. So that's the first bullet point. And then there's a second bullet point that I believe we added, and the way I worded it was, support new board members and new board leadership through effective intra-board communication and professional development opportunities. That's honestly something that we could put on there every year, but I think this year in particular, having 2 new board members and having Matt stepping into the president's role, I think there was some value in sort of calling out that as well. We did talk, so I think that's what we had under that goal. Was there anything else sort of in that area that board members recall that we talked about, or does that kind of sum up that piece? And there is a second goal here as well.
No, I think you covered part of it.
So the second goal for the high level wording of it was support district management of COVID crisis. Now, you guys comfortable with that wording? Are we okay with calling it a crisis? I mean, it really is, but if there's language that would be preferable, we can certainly alter that. Mm-hmm. And the 2 bullet points under there is number 1, provide governance for reallocation of resources as necessary over the course of the school year as conditions evolve. So one of the things that we recognize is that number 1, we're a month out from the beginning of the school year, and we're still not sure exactly what school is going to look like this year. And we also know that there's a good chance that wherever we start, that's probably not what school is going to look like for the entirety of the year, unless we make a decision to do that. And even then, we don't know when things are going to change. And so we do know that we're going to have to be agile with the way that we handle resource allocation. And unlike most years where we can kind of create a budget and say, this is what we're sticking with, as things evolve, we may need to think about how those things change. And as one of the board's primary goals is around the fiduciary responsibility and governance of the district finances, we felt that was an important thing to point out, and working closely in concert with the district leadership around that. And then the second bullet point for district management of the COVID crisis was support district communication with stakeholders to ensure all have a voice and are updated as conditions evolve. And so this is really just in support of the role that the board plays as the representatives, the elected representatives of all of the stakeholders in the district, and continuing our tradition of ensuring that people have an opportunity to be heard when they have concerns or questions about things, as well as support for ongoing communication out to the community to ensure that everybody understands, again, as things are going to evolve, we need to have a constant stream of well-organized communication to ensure that people know this is what school looks like when it's starting, and then sometime down the road, if that changes, things are going to change on this date, and this is the plan going forward from here. And then also just, I think right now, we talked yesterday a fair bit about the fact that there's always going to be a certain degree of unknown. And part of the communication is probably also about being honest about that with people and making sure that everyone understands that there will always be some things that we're not sure about, and we're going to continue to work with the information we have and do the best we can to support keeping our kids safe and educating them.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Tom and I have been sitting in on the school reopening task force meetings that have been happening on a weekly basis. And Tom, did you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. And to lead into that, I'd like to say that I also registered for the NYSBA Summer Law Conference that was virtual. And it was 2 half days, July 21st and July 22nd. The panels were very informative. And as you can imagine, each panelist was an attorney. And one of the things I came away with was just how challenging the times are if I didn't know that, going in. I took copious notes and shared them, the highlights anyway, with Assistant Superintendent White a couple of days later. But one of the things that they admitted was that there's so much contradictory information out there that each district has to wrestle with. One example is, there are recommendations for schools to have multiple entrances to thin the herd of people, coming and going, and then to keep windows open as much as possible for fresh air to come in. But, they said districts have to look at how that squares with safety policies that, we've worked hard to put in place. So that's just one example that, the task force, I think, is of the issues that the task force is dealing with. But I think, like you, Matt, I've come away very impressed with the amount of work and collaboration that members and committees, subcommittees on the task force have put in to this. And another thing in that virtual law seminar that they stressed was parent messaging throughout the summer, in advance of the school year. And, again, seeing what we've posted on our website and the discussions at the task force meetings, I think show that we're in a good place there. We've been sending messages out, and I'm sure we'll be continuing to do that through the school year.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, it's been really eye-opening for me sitting on these meetings. I know Superintendent Samato and Assistant Superintendent White have worked very hard on putting together this task force, and along with Mr. Muscarella, Mike Muscarella, and Lisa Cross have been planning and facilitating the meetings. And when you look at the makeup of the task force and how many people are involved, when you get down to the committees with administrators and the cabinet, teachers, support staff, community members, you're probably looking at well over 100 people. I think they're involved at some point throughout the district. And it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of hard work. And I know they're working very hard at it. And one thing, as Tom kind of alluded to, for every question that we answer, 5 or 6 more questions pop up, and it's going to be an ongoing, changing, fluid thing that this whole idea of reopening. So I know the superintendent's going to talk more about that, and I'm not going to steal any of his thunder. But any other committee or reports, board reports? How about board comments?
I think I'll wait for the superintendent to give his report about about what you've done, because I have a few comments that I'd like to make about that. So I'll wait.
Okay. Any other board comments? Okay, as part of our meeting yesterday, and we kind of already mentioned it, but part of the meeting was to decide on a tool to be used for superintendent's evaluation, and the training that was done with SuperEval yesterday that we attended was an excellent training, and I think we decided right on using SuperEval for that evaluation, and we will set up a more structured time frame in the near future for that. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Samato.
Well, thank you very much, President Chimera, and thank you, board, for all of your support, not just through trying to open school and figure out all the specifics that you're all contributing to, but also just for the past month. It's as you can imagine, it's always nerve-wracking to come into a superintendency. This is my first superintendency, and to come in during this time, I couldn't be happier with the support of the community, the support of you as a board, and just the teamwork. I think you've all talked about it, throughout your comments as the task force and just throughout Kenton. So I'm very appreciative of that. My update tonight, I want to focus solely on school reopening, and why. The obvious, because it's the thing that's on everybody's mind, and also why, because it's ever so changing. So even since the update that I gave on Friday, I want to give further updates this evening and kind of give some foreshadowing into the updates that will come at the end of this week. As you said, President Chimera and Trustee Riegstad, that a lot of people have been working. Miss Kelly White has been working very, very hard with Miss Cross, Mr. Muscarella, the entire team, the teachers at all the schools, the administrators at all the schools, the community. Everybody's been chipping in, and this is not a easy fix. It's not a one size fits all, but the big thing that I think we're all continuing to learn, we kind of know this through education outside of times of COVID, but we have to be willing to be very humble during this event. And what I mean by that is, even when we think that we have things figured out, we can't let our egos get in the way and not be willing to change and look at things a little bit deeper. And tonight I'm going to focus a little bit on that. I think the majority, if not all of you, got a chance to see the video that we put out. Not just that I put out, it's me in the face, but that comes with a lot of work that a lot of people are doing. And I'm just sharing the information that we're all putting out there. It's something that we're going to continue to do on Fridays, is to put out that video. We're going to dabble by the end of the month in some type of a town hall virtual forum meeting. And that will complement, supplement what we're already doing with that video. The point is, I want to keep on giving our community updates on the progress that all of these wonderful teams are making without everybody always having to read through the entire document to find those updates. So please stay tuned. And the biggest message to the community is we really love the comments that people are giving. And that includes the people that are frustrated. We only get better, and we'll only do the best that we can through the feedback that we receive when it comes to this. So we received a lot of feedback since Friday, a lot of feedback. And I guess the first announcement that I'll make tonight is that we hear the feedback of the community. We hear the feedback of the teams at the schools. We are going to be very fluid in our decision making, and we're continuing to reevaluate our hybrid option. I've sent this in emails to everybody, and that has emailed me. So I want to make it very public. Ladies and gentlemen, the hybrid option that we originally landed on is an A-B hybrid option. And remember, once again, when it comes to school options, I'm not sure if we could bring that slide up, John, but when it comes to school options, really, like I said at our last meeting, we have three things that we're looking at. A full all the way back, and that's kind of, we're all going to school all the time, and I'm only going to focus on one slide. For this, I really want to just bring the focus into these four areas. I already spoke about communication, but in the options, it was either that we're going to go all back, we're going to remain in a virtual, which everybody is at home, or we're going to do a hybrid, which is a combination of the two, okay? With all of the guidance that we've received from not only state ed, but our Department of Health and the mandates that come with this pandemic, obviously people realize it's not easy, but it looks more and more like the only way of school is to open today. The only option that we would really have is a hybrid option, okay? So that's being very clear with the community, and we'll update that. We're waiting for an announcement from our governor this week. Our governor will give us more specifics. I tend to think that he's going to discuss, he said that he's going to discuss that there's going to be some fluidity by region, and we'll see what other guidance he gives this week. But with the hybrid, our teams had to look at what could that look like. And there were many different options and opportunities for us. We ended up landing on an A-B. I'll be very clear with everyone why we landed on an A-B. On an A-B, it gave us some of the things that we were looking at in the mandates. It reduced class size. It reduced the amount of kids in transportation. It would enable us to social distance to the best ability that we could in classrooms, even though we still have to maintain masks and keep other things at the forefront. It enabled us to social distance. And why we went with an A-B option or an every other day option, one group, and when I say A-B, that means one group comes on one day, the next group comes on the next day, then the next day after that, the original group comes again, and so on and so forth. We looked at this and we landed on this. There were many districts, and the other option on the table was to do a group going 2 days a week, a B group going 2 days a week, and then something else for that fifth day, right? Just under normal circumstances, a fifth day, because we know a typical week has 5 days. Why we didn't land on that was for a lot of scheduling reasons. But we also didn't land on that because we were fearful that with the unknown of the pandemic, that if we stayed in this model for the entire year, that we would be losing a day of instruction, of face-to-face instruction, in-person instruction per week. This is only one of the reasons, but it was a contributing factor. 4 days in a typical month times 10 months, that's 40 days. You're looking at 40 days. There's typically 20 days of instruction in any given month. 40 days, if you have alternating groups, it's a month of in-person instruction for each group. And especially for our youngest, we were fearful for that. Our high schoolers, we know how much they missed last year and the effects that that also has on them, not only academically, but all of our kids socially and emotionally. We wanted to get what we were considering our biggest bang for our buck. We hear and we realize the problem that is facing on our community. So we're continuing to look at it. None of this is set in stone. And this week, by the end of the week, I'm hoping that we'll be able to announce some changes that we're going to make to that hybrid option. We have heard the major concerns and we understand them. We weren't trying to ignore them and be disrespectful to anyone in our community. It's just a very difficult thing that we're doing. So we'll continue to be fluid. We'll continue to take that feedback. It won't always be the answer that everybody wants to hear. We know that from our survey results. Our survey results typically show that when people feel strongly about one way, there's almost the same amount of people that feel strongly, just as strongly about the other way. The problem that we do have to recognize in a lot of our surveys, we did not discuss just that A and B option. And that came up as more discussion and more planning came about. There was no hidden agenda there, but it really, as things progress in our committees and we're hearing the best thinking around the table, that's how that moved. That's me being completely honest and transparent, and also that we all know that we got to continue to look at it, but we will make some type of final decision on that hybrid this week. We can't let it go past this Friday. We just can't. There's too much other planning that needs to be done, and we will announce that. So please, for our community and for board members, stay tuned. We're going to continue that work, and we have wonderful people like Ms. White. Our other cabinet members have contributed also, very much so also, Mr. Mercado and also Mr. Richards to everything that we're doing. So please stay tuned and we'll get there. So you'll see that under that blue box, scheduling options. These other boxes, just to bring people up to speed with some of the 30,000 foot view. And once again, really focusing on hybrid. Why I'm focusing so much on hybrid is because it's really where we're at right now, okay? And buildings and grounds, everybody talks about this deep clean. I've shared in my update, and I'll continue to share, we have some of the best buildings and grounds crew that I have seen in my experience in education. Led by Tim Ames and his department. These folks are really doing everything to not only keep our buildings up to code and up to snuff, but also to disinfect and do this on a daily basis and even during the day. They're assuring us that this is a doable task, and they're going to also do some flexing of their scheduling to bring people on even during the school day to increase capacity and increase force, okay? With that though, you'll also see things like that terminology in that second bullet up there, that daily use of electrostatic sprayers and disinfecting wipes in every classroom, 1 minute kill time. We are at the cutting edge in Kenton of using this technology to clean, and we will be making sure that all of our buildings and our buses, we'll talk about that in transportation in a little bit, but we'll be utilizing this technology to make sure that things are disinfected. Now, utilizing the sprayers, that's more of an every night thing. Utilizing the wipes, it's a during the day thing, and they're going to be used widely throughout, but those are just two examples. Air quality. People keep on speaking about air quality, and colleagues and community, air quality is, you know, sometimes it's a very difficult thing to understand, right? The professionals that work with the HVAC equipment all the time, they know what the not only mandates are, but to bring us above the mandates and make sure that our air quality is safe. That deals with everything from what I've learned to from airflow control to the type of filter that we're using. And people then start getting, or at least we as general people that listen to stuff about building maintenance, start thinking that we know a lot about filtration from what we hear on the news. And there's a lot more that goes into it. Our crew is taking and will be using the most effective filtration that can be utilized in our buildings. And they're taking it even a step further. You see a bipolar ionization technology. That's an example of just from a 30,000 foot, how that works, bringing molecules together so that they can be collected with the filtration systems that will be in place and to make the air quality even of a higher quality. So that's just a glimpse into things that our building and grounds are doing. Our food service. Food service, so I talked about this in the update as well, led by Ms. Kim Roll. Our food service is really the effort and the focus that this department puts into making sure that our kids have the best at all times. It's quite remarkable. It really is. They know that we're challenged with not only COVID, but now there's regular things that they have to always take into account. And that's things like allergies and food sensitivities and how we can have the least amount of touch points as we can when it comes to food and ordering and paying. So they're leading through all of that. And you can see in those bullets there, exploring new methods for ordering and paying. That's the last bullet. I mentioned that during the update. And we're hoping that we'll be able to roll that out exactly what that'll look like in one of the weekly updates coming up. Kim is working very diligently on that, but you'll also see pickup options for students participating in remote learning. And I'm going to go back to one more thing about remote learning. So no matter what mode we're in, if we're in a hybrid or in a virtual, besides the food that we're offering in school, we will also have areas throughout our community where food will be offered to our community, just kind of like how we did during this pandemic for the first several months that we went through it. So our food service will also be in a hybrid per se. Now you're going to see something, and I waited strategically for this moment to talk about remote learning. I spoke of the hybrid model, and I want our community to know one other thing that we are still working on is, can we offer, even if we're in a hybrid model, a full virtual model as well, okay, simultaneously. I'm not 100% positive that we will be able to do that, but we are focused on it. It is a priority for us. I can tell families, I can tell you as a board that and I know this sounds like we're pushing it down the line, but we have to wait for certain developments and see how things develop. We have to see what the governor says. We have to see what our capacity is when it comes to staffing. We have to see where we are when it comes to our student population. We have to see how many students are staying home and how many are going to be coming to school. Our focus is that the governor tells us that it's safe and the DOH tells us that it's safe to run a hybrid option, that's what we'll also be promoting as a district, that it's safe. But we do recognize of the different feelings that go with this pandemic, and we want to offer as many options as we can. So that is not off the table. It is not something that we're saying it's just a no, that we're not going to be able to do it. We are very seriously looking into it, not only as a district, but also with partnering and however we could partner with that. Folks, we have an amazing teaching staff in Kenton. We have excellent, hardworking teachers and administrators. We have very collaborative unions that we're going to continue to look out of the box. For me to promise you something today, I know it's not the early stages, but we're still in the early stages of trying to finalize these plans. But I'm confident that everyone is on the same page with their work ethic and what they want to do to try and offer the best, safest options for everyone involved, Of course, our students are first, but we are taking our staff absolutely into account when it comes to this. It has to be a priority. So more news will come in the weekly update with that. Transportation, in a hybrid option, we will have less students taking the bus and on transportation. That is a focus and it has to be a concern. All students will be wearing masks on transportation as of right now. Just like all students will be wearing masks throughout the school day as of right now. And we will continue to focus on, during transportation, of wiping down high contact areas on those buses regularly. During the trips, right after the trips, in between trips, and those buses will go through a very thorough cleaning every evening. And as I said, folks, I do worry about the terminology of deep clean. Deep clean can almost seem like things aren't being cleaned on the regular and we're waiting for the deep clean. Okay, it is a priority that things are always being sanitized to the safest that we can regularly. Every night in the schools, every night on transportation, that has to be a priority. That is something that all teams, all staff, all families are pushing. Okay, does not mean that we're going to be close to that day, as many people have brought up in the hybrid, of having a virtual day where we're looking at that and trying to figure that out. And if we do have that day, then there'll be maybe an even deeper clean than we can. But we are deep cleaning everything all the time. It has to be the priority. It's not just the old days of a mop and a bucket and we go through and that's it. We do a once over. Everybody's going to be cleaning desks as regularly as humanly possible and sanitizing with some of this equipment that we spoke of. The electrostatic sprayers, and you'll see that those will be used on our buses. We will be putting out some things to be prepared for. We will be putting out to our community that we are looking for people that are willing to volunteer to either have their students walk to school that typically take transportation, if that is at all possible, or even families dropping off and picking up. Now, that's also going to be a scheduling issue. So I'm front loading everybody with that. The teams at the schools are doing a wonderful job. They will be looking at those times and how they will figure out how this will all look with drop-offs and pickups as we go through the month of August. And so we will be giving more of an update that will be school specific. So for example, we know that we have especially certain schools throughout the district that struggle with drop-off and pickup and arrival and dismissal times. We will know more when we have the numbers of how we are splitting students up, what that impact will be during arrival and dismissal, and then we'll know even more as we get some of this information back from families, what that will look like. But the information to families will sound and look something like this. We're going to ask if people, like we said in our volunteer, or in our survey, who would be willing to volunteer for the semester, and we might take it a semester at a time, to drive and pick up their students so that we can plan accordingly. Okay, so I'm asking the community, I'm asking you to also be aware and watch out and kind of spread the news about this every way that you can in your water cooler talks and talking to your constituents, that we need people responding to those as quickly and as accurately as humanly possible. We know that some things can change, but we're really asking people to stick with it. And my last thing to say to the community and to you tonight is that all of this is truly going to have to be, I know that we have tremendous community partners. Our families are wonderful in Kenton. They are working their tails off, and they're just trying to figure this out the same way that we are. They're trying to figure out not only school, that's our quality world, but what they're going to do to take care of their family on a regular basis. There are people out of work and bills are piling up. There are all these things that are going on, that everybody's quality world is different. But the quality world that we have to know and expect is the partnership that has to exist between the school district and the families. We will be sending things out that we're asking families for all of their help with. We appreciate all the feedback that the communities have given to us, and we will continue to listen to that feedback. You won't always get the answers and the updates from me please understand that we are doing our best. We do enjoy the feedback because it does keep our finger on the pulse with everything that everyone is feeling. Please always remain as respectful during this trying time as possible. We ask for that, and that goes with the partnership. We will listen. We will listen. It is our priority right now, and it will continue to be our priority. Once again, thank you for everything that you're doing. Please watch for that update this week. We will have another video update. We will update on the hybrid this week. I have promised people that we'll continue to look at that, and we will give our update on that, and together that we'll do our best work. So I would ask any of my cabinet colleagues or Mr. Finelli, or board members for that matter, if there's any comment or question that you have for me, or if there's anything that I forgot that anybody feels should be part of the update right now. That was a lengthy update, but I wanted to speak to you from the cuff and let you all know what hard work is being done. You really should be proud of everyone in Kenton. People are looking for solutions. They're not just looking for a way out or the easy way out. People are truly looking for the best solution for kids, for families, and for our staff, and we'll continue to do so.
Any questions or comments?
I have a comment for the superintendent. I didn't want to steal some of your thunder because I knew that you were going to talk about a couple of things. So that's why I decided to wait until after you were done. But I just want to commend you and the task force. Over 100 people is impressive. For the thoroughness of the plan that you released last Friday. And I appreciate that it's a fluid document, that you recognize that things will change. I appreciate that you thought of the idea of lost time. When I first saw the every other day, I really was unaware of why you thought that was the way to go. But, you know, as I am a teacher and thinking of lost time, that is something that we think a lot about and how we'll accomplish what we have to accomplish with our students. So, you know, I'm in a different district, but that time is important for teachers. I will say that I appreciate the fact that each school has a plan, and I read each of the school's plans, and that there is school-specific content in each one. So that shows that each school must have had a role in it, and that they had the opportunity to have some, you know, stake in what the plan looks like. I appreciated your video on Friday with the Kenton Connection. And the stakeholder data video that was done earlier than that, I thought that was very helpful. And to know that you're going to be, willing to speak to the community, not just at a board meeting, but every Friday is really helpful. My last comment is that the extensive details in the plan compare very well to some other districts and are actually much better than plans that I've read from other districts. So I also encourage people to continue to comment. It's hard for everybody, hard for families, it's hard for teachers. And I feel that the more everybody has at least had a say in it, that'll really help make it hopefully work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Batava.
Wanted to make a comment too, just to thank the district administrators for listening to parents' concerns. I've heard a lot of talk out in the community about the AV rotation, and people were very upset that wasn't a model that was presented in the survey. And obviously, we know a lot of parents have contacted the district and voiced their concerns. And as a parent, I am thankful that you are listening to parent concerns in the district and taking that into consideration. So I just want to say thank you for listening and taking action on what the feedback you're getting.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just a final acknowledgement. I know I acknowledged our staff. And honestly, folks, whenever you see our staff, and I know that you do this all the time, but whether it's our cabinet or our teachers, our support staff, our administrators, these people are really, and like I said, they've been around, okay? Their hearts and their minds are in the right place. They lose sleep over this every night. Sometimes just hearing from somebody to say, thank you, we know you don't have it all worked out yet, but I encourage our community. We thank the community for your patience, and we'll continue to figure it out. But thank you very much to all of our staff.
Okay, I think we're on to Assistant Superintendent White.
Thank you. I just have one item on my executive summary tonight, the professional development plan, otherwise known as the professional learning plan. The New York State Education Department requires us to annually adopt and/or in the case of a multi-year plan, re-adopt annually. Last year, we submitted the multi-year professional development plan. Quite an extensive amount of work. Thank you to Elaine Ablov, Staff Development Center, Policy Board. And for this year, there are no recommended changes to the plan that we presented last year. So I am asking Superintendent Samato if he would recommend to the Board of Education the professional development plan or professional learning plan to the Board of Education for re-adoption.
Okay. And with that, President Chimera, I do recommend the professional development plan for your approval.
Right, do I have a motion to approve the professional development plan statement of certification?
So moved.
So moved by Andrew.
Second.
Second by Leslie. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. I also have a couple of contracts on my consensus agenda. Were there any questions on either of those contracts? That concludes my report then. Thank you.
Thank you. And from here then, President Chimera, I would ask that we turn it over to Mr. Mercado for our financial report.
All right, thank you. To start off my report, I'd just like to speak to the board and the public about the CARES Act funding for just a moment. So this CARES Act funding is a federal grant that comes to all districts in the United States. And New York State chose back when state aid was released to supplement the state aid that we normally would get through foundation aid and other categorical aids with this CARES Act funding. So when this came out, it was in January through the April budgeting process, and we were allocated a little over $1.8 million. Now that we're in the process of applying for this funding, we have to factor in our non-public schools that lie within our district. So right now there are 9 eligible schools that would be able to take advantage of this funding. And the way we have to calculate their proportionate share is by total enrollment. And the important distinction with this is that it's not total enrollment of Kenton resident students in our non-public, it's total enrollment for that school. So that means any other student that is enrolled in, say, St. Amelia's, whether it's in Kenton or not, we have to factor that in our calculation. So the numbers we use are our total students in our Kenton schools and the total enrollment of these non-pub schools. And when that all shakes out, it's about 28% of that 1.8 million that we have to distribute to the non-publics. And what that means in real dollars and cents is about $503,000. So we're really looking at 1.3 million that we can take advantage of locally here at our district. So recently what we've done is we need to survey each school and we need to give them a form to fill out to either have them accept or reject the funding that's coming their way. I've gotten back a few of these responses from the private schools, and then we are then the custodians of the funds and have to allocate those out to the districts or to the schools as they've requested. So we will be submitting our application to the state. They have an online portal. It's due August 15th, so I'll make sure to get that done. But the private schools have until noon tomorrow to respond to us, or it's considered a non-response. So the frustrating part for us is that we are now, funding students that aren't necessarily residents of Kenton. So that's somewhat inequitable in terms of how we are allocated these funds. And it wasn't necessarily made clear on the onset of how these funds would be distributed. So we were expecting 1.8 million to come through, but now we're looking at 1.3 million. And compounded by the fact that we have plenty of unbudgeted expenditures with personal protective equipment, thermal scanners, and otherwise, this just kind of exacerbates the issue of our funding going into next year. So when we look at the actual private schools and Kenton residents enrolled in these schools, based on the data I've gotten so far of current enrollments, we're looking about 25% is the average of our in-district private schools where our Kenton students are enrolled. So 25% of those are, our funding is going to really 25% of that enrollment, which those are our students. But I just wanted to give a brief summary again. We'll be submitting our application August 15th at the latest. Are there any questions that I can answer specific to the CARES Act funding? Okay.
I
Yeah.
did send a question to you. Do you know, and you may not have been able to get all the answers to this, so I appreciate that if you could find out, but we have 9 schools. Is there another district that's comparable to that would be sort of on the same level, or it seems like there's quite a few here that, and you said the percentage of Kenton students at those schools, so that means there's other districts.
So I'm trying to find the source, but I remember when I started here, I was told that Kenton per capita has the most private schools in their district. We, just based on when the district was formed and when these private schools were formed, we just have so many more than surrounding districts. Now I want to get the actual data and the source on that, but that's something we're still looking into. But 9 is incredibly high for a district.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I have 2 action items on my agenda. The first is specific to the tax levy and rate recommendation. So there's a little bit of a change in the numbers from when we were presenting the budget in May and June, technically, now that the times have shifted to where we are today. And a lot of that has to do with the total valuation of the town. And what I mean by that is we went out to the voters with a 2.59% increase on the tax levy. That hasn't changed. That's statutorily voted on, and that's what we're adopting. However, where the variance is in the tax rate, that gets a little more complicated because that's based on the total valuation of the town. Now, when we were estimating, what we've done historically is we've taken the valuation as a single point in time because we can't necessarily predict if it's going to go up or down until we get that information from the town and the county. But at that time, we took a static number and we did a projection based on the tax rate, which would have been 2.59. Now, as it stands, the valuation has gone down about $5.3 million in the town itself. So what that means is there's the direct correlation is an increase in the actual tax rate. So the tax rate is actually going up 0.33% more than what we had projected. It's a marginal increase, but still an increase. So when people get their tax bills, we don't want people to be alarmed and say, hey, you said, you were increasing my taxes 2.59%. That's still the case. It's just that there's less of the pie to go around in the town. So we have to, that tax rate actually increases a little bit. So I don't want that to be a surprise to anybody in the community once those tax bills come out in the fall. With that, I'd recommend to Superintendent Samato the tax levy and rate approval.
Okay. And I do recommend President Chimera that that tax rate recommendation for your approval.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the tax rate recommendation? So moved by Leslie,
Second.
second by Andrew. Any discussion? Okay. There being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. The next action item I have under my report is the internal audit approval. Every year we go through an internal audit, which focuses more on policy, processes, and procedures. Unlike our external audit, which is strictly just a financial analysis and audit of each year's finances. With the internal audit this year, we did incredibly well with minimal recommendations compared to previous years. And what that says to me is that we're getting much better, and the auditors would tell you the same as well. So what we do is we keep a running list of the previous findings and keep those updated on an annual basis. So when the auditors come back, they can see kind of where our progress is and how we're moving forward. And we also submit that plan to the state as required by law. But the focus this year was the Family Support Center. There were a few recommendations that came out of that. And just because a recommendation shows up on an internal audit does not mean it's a bad thing. It's just an opportunity for us to improve, an opportunity for us to kind of plan moving forward. But I'm very proud of how this audit came out this year. And I really commend our team in the Family Support Center and the technology department and buildings and grounds, the other areas that we're focused on, because unlike previous years, when I first started here, there's a lot less that has been found and has been brought up on the audit. But we're always looking to continuously improve, and the internal audit is a great mechanism to kind of help us do that. So on June 8th, the audit committee did meet and was presented the internal audit and all the recommendations. And every year we recommend this for approval. And with that, I recommend to the superintendent the internal audit approval.
Thank you, John. And President Chimera, I do recommend that internal audit for approval.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the internal audit?
So moved.
So moved by Tom, second by Jen. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
I have a few other contracts and lease agreements in my summary. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any. Okay, and then finally, I just want to take a quick moment and say thank you. This is my last board meeting with Kenton, and it's bittersweet. Back 5 years ago, Kenton took a huge risk on hiring me. I had little business official experience and admittedly was incredibly nervous to start the job, but having been there for a couple of weeks, I knew that I had some great supports around me, a Board of Education that supported my success, and an administrative team that I was really proud to work with. Fast forward to today, none of that has changed except for I'm 5 years wiser as a business official, and I'm really proud of the work that we've accomplished, not only in the business office, but as an administrative team here. I entered with halfway through a capital project of $56 million. So I was able to see that through, and then had the pleasure of kind of really constructing a capital project from the ground up with our team here. And I can't say enough how grateful I am to have this experience. And it truly, it's saddening for me to leave because I know I'm leaving such a great team, but at the same time, I'm excited for my next chapter in public education. And I'm, again, thankful to the board, and I appreciate your support to Superintendent Samato. Having worked with him for a few weeks, I was remarking the other day that I'm kind of sad to leave because I see him as a mentor and somebody who I would really enjoy working with. But even though I won't be working with him directly, I know that we'll maintain contact and support each other moving forward. And you have an amazing administrative team here. We have a great group of building principals. Our directors are fantastic. And this is, our teaching staff and support staff, everyone here, I've just had such an amazing opportunity and pleasure working with, and just, again, wanted to extend my thanks and granting me this opportunity here. And I look forward to the next chapter, but I'm sad to leave. So that concludes my report.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mercado, and I'll be the one to say right now that congratulations to you, and making decisions. We as Kenton, we're always a family. We hate to see you go, but we're very supportive in your decisions, and we just wish you the best of luck. You're not only a great business official, you've been working on this wonderful team with your colleagues, and you guys have really, you're a dynamic trio, the 3 cabinet members that sit here before me, and I feel like we're losing one, but we're still very, very happy for you. You will be missed, and we're very appreciative. But most of all, John, you're just a good man of character. So we wish you all the best, and just going to miss you.
Thank you. And I do one last comment. The whole microphone issue we've been having was strategic. If you haven't known it's been perfect tonight, I was waiting for this moment in my career. This one's for you, Matt.
You just jinxed yourself now.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Thank you. I know it's not board comments, but I do have to say, being a teacher in the district for many years, and John came in, as he said, 5 years ago, and seeing that capital project back then be carried through and getting this new one approved. And now as a board member, seeing him from a different lens, being at trainings, fiscal trainings that I've had to attend as a board member, John's there basically conducting these trainings with board members all over Western New York. So he just does a great job, and we're gonna really miss you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, President Chimera, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Richards for his human resources report.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. John, we're going to miss you. Good luck. I wish you the best. And thanks for your guidance and your leadership in my last year and a half. As part of my report tonight, I have one action item that requires your approval. It's a resolution which has 3 provisions in it. The first provision is an appointment of Debbie Appolito as the interim director of tech, subject to SED approval of a 211 waiver. The second provision is the approval of the terms and conditions of her employment agreement and the approval of a submission of the 211 waiver to SED. The 211 waiver really provides us with the opportunity to hire somebody in a situation, either an emergent situation or a situation where we can't find a highly qualified, specialized individual. Debbie proves to be that specialized individual with her background and skills. So upon approval, I will petition the state on August 15th for the approval of the waiver, which really just lifts the restrictions on a retiree's earnings. So I request Superintendent Simano to recommend the resolution as presented for approval of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Richards, and President Chimera. I do recommend the resolution to approve the request to petition for 211 waiver.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the request to petition for 211 waiver?
So moved.
So moved by Leslie,
Second.
second by Andrew. Is there any discussion? Okay, there being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, and with that, President Chimera, I recommend the consensus agenda for your approval.
Okay, first, are there any requests to withdraw specific items from the consensus? No, then a motion to approve the consensus agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Andrew,
Second.
second by Jen. Is there any discussion? There being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, takes us to item 12A. Any other matters? No, and I don't think we have any need for an executive session this evening. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Andrew. That was fast, Andrew. You want to get it?
That was pretty great.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor